Dragon Ball Z is famous for being long, drawn out, and by modern standards, boring, which sounds a lot like a cowboy western. I'm being serious. Dragon Ball has that energy. The tension built in music, the rugged, worn out facial expressions, a lawless galaxy with tense, long stare down. Dragon Ball is a classic cowboy western applied to an anime, but consider something even bigger, because it's not just Dragon Ball. Cowboy western as a genre is actually one of the biggest influences on anime of all time. And before you don't believe me, consider Ichigo literally has a sheriff's badge, and you can't convince me otherwise. For me, this scene captures the true essence of what Dragon Ball is all about. Simply because Dragon Ball is an anime about our main character overcoming the odds every single time. And this particular example is wonderful because visually, Vegeta has the high ground. It's being implied that he has the advantage. Even so, Goku meets the battle with full confidence. Confidence that he can win. The scene is a fantastic example of the tension I was talking about earlier. You get to see this beautiful build-up to something greater. The core idea of tension is so foundational that you can see it echoed all the way through the entire franchise. My favorite example is from the Broly movie, because let's be real, that sequence is so clean. So long as this building of tension always exists, we never have to worry that the anime has strayed from its original path. Why do you think Goku's late to every single fight? What is a space western? In summary, a space western is Star Wars. The good versus the bad, arid desert climate, the sand. Are you seeing the similarities? My favorite anime of all time, Cowboy Bebop, is a space western. Another popular example is Trigun, both of which were made in the 90s. And considering that actually raises a pretty interesting point. A lot of 90s anime seem to shadow that long, drawn-out vibe. They're slower and take their time. Almost as if 90s anime is equivalent to cowboy westerns, except in Japan and Wait, hang on. What does this have to do with Dragon Ball again? Oh, right. Dragon Ball is one of the first ever space westerns. The actual first one to ever release was Star Wars, which if you think about it, Star Wars is definitely a western set in space. They are literally in the desert in every other movie. Dragon Ball, it definitely is not one of the ones that came to mind when you thought about space western. But the clip I've been playing this entire video repeatedly is literally in the desert. And if you know much about Dragon Ball, you'll realize that the Saiyan saga, the Cell saga, and the Buu saga largely took place in deserts. Even the most famous battle of Dragon Ball history, Goku vs Frieza and the Namek saga, took place on a deserted planet. If you reach a little bit, modern Dragon Ball is set in deserts too. Not for most of Dragon Ball Super, but the North Pole is kind of a desert, and that's where they fought Broly. Cowboy Western is quite possibly the most influential genre ever. Under the surface, a lot of anime, particularly... What are you doing? No. Yeah, you'll sit for the camera. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you'll sit when I bring the camera out, but you won't sit when, like, you know, I'm asking you to come sit here. Good doggy. Back to what I was saying. Under the surface, a lot of anime, particularly up until the 90s, had long, drawn-out scenes that would take forever to go on. But they would still be enjoyable because it was an entertaining concept, and there were so many creative ways in which time got filled. Western films are notorious for being long and arduous to get through, just like Dragon Ball Z. Previously, I mentioned the Frieza saga. It is infamous for being one of the longest sagas in anime, but the thing is, you are constantly engaged by the swelling building tension as all the elements built up finally come together. The same can be said about Bleach, Naruto, and even One Piece, and that's about pirates. The real reason shonen anime is popular is because of one universal foundation. It's cowboys. America just happened to get the edge with the film industry because they're the home of cowboys, but now they're losing that cowboy edge. So now we've all turned out to anime for our righteous sheriff and our lawless scumbag. At the heart, we all know that cowboys are cool. It's a given. You probably have an image of riding off into the sunset on horseback. It is one of the most iconic moments in Star Wars. Luke just standing there, staring off into the sun as it closes. The cowboy western stories, I believe, taught us an important lesson about filmmaking that you can't find in real life. Because in real life, we are entirely reactive to our circumstances. We can't control what happens next. In movies, you have complete control. Nowadays, it's really easy to control all of those elements. But back in the day, they didn't have as much control as we had. There were some things they just flat out couldn't do. So they built tension, slowly moving to that one moment that everyone is waiting for. You end up sitting on the edge of your seat in anticipation. This is something that still happens today. But in the modern day, we're more concerned about spectacle and how technically impressive things are. But certainly, we can agree on one thing. Other than the technically impressive stuff, Star Wars did something right. And that's because George Lucas, he understood. The people don't just want fancy VFX or impressive visuals. The people want sand. For without sand, you will certainly fall to the dark side. That is the true message of Star Wars. And you can't prove me wrong.